2, 1.
I know. All right. We welcome Baylor student athletes Queen Egbo and Jamie Asbury. Uh, we will take in-person questions first, and if anybody's in the Zoom waiting room, we will take those. As always, when asking a question, please identify yourself by your name and media affiliation. And Queen and Jamie will go ahead and take questions. Chad?
Chad Conine, Waco Tribune Herald. Queen, this is again familiar territory for you. When you were a freshman, you were here preparing for a second round game. Last year, the bubble thing. But as a senior going into it, does it feel like it did 3 years ago? Is it different? What's your perspective on all of that?
It's definitely familiar, but it happened so long ago, so that feeling has kind of faded a little bit. I feel like we need to all refresh our minds and, make another run and make it past this team. Of course, they're a good team, and so we're just worried about getting past this one, and everything else will come together.
And for Jamie, Coach was saying yesterday that they're trying to get you in rhythm in the second half. And I don't know if y'all just had practice or about to have practice, but you kind of looking for that, trying to find that rhythm now that you're in the postseason and trying to get your team, some production there.
So I was in the rhythm starting the Big 12 tournament, but I think kind of yesterday I got out of whack a little bit. So I just got to bring my confidence back and get back in that rhythm. And, I can't get down on myself from what happened yesterday. Only thing I can do is help my team the best way I can.
Jay Elson from Midco Sports. Ladies, I'd love to hear both perspectives on this, but just after getting a look at South Dakota yesterday and seeing what they were able to do against Ole Miss, what are your early impressions of that matchup with the Coyotes?
Obviously, they're a very physical team. They're very fundamental. They play well together, and they know each other very well and what their capabilities are. And so I feel like they just play within that, and they don't do too much. And they just play simple basketball. And nowadays, you see people trying to do too much, and that's what often, gets them off track. But I feel like South Dakota is real poised, and they have a lot of experience, so they're able to play well together.
I would say, majority of the team are seniors. So this is big for them. You don't want to, leave on a bad note on your senior year. So, like she said, they're a very good team. They've been playing together for 4 years now. They do the little things that help them that people may not notice, but, they can drive, they can shoot, they can rebound. They have all the good things, the good qualities within their team. So I just think that if we bring our good qualities, we'll be okay.
Queen, there aren't many teams in the country that can, defend both you and Alyssa. And this looks like maybe a matchup where they would, be hard pressed to do that. Does that put a lot of pressure on you guys, though, to be the determining factor in the game?
For sure, I feel like just the attention Alyssa brings as well as some attention that I bring can focus in and laser in on us. But I definitely feel like tomorrow is going to be a guards game. I feel like because they pack the paint so much, the guards should be able to knock down shots and get easy looks. And that'll open things up for us in the paint, which will make things a lot easier. But initially going in, of course, we're going to look to dominate. Of course, we're going to look to crash the glass and finish those easy bunnies around the rim. But I feel like just as much as it is our game, it's going to be their game too.
Queen, they were able to kind of frustrate Shakira Austin yesterday. What did you notice just by watching the way they defended, a big-time post from Ole Miss?
Well, of course, Shakira is a great player. She's one of the best players in the country. She brings a lot of attention, and they were literally like triple teaming her, sending 4 people around her whenever she caught the ball. So it was just kind of hard for her to do anything. She didn't really have another post player that could relieve her pressure, and she didn't also really have guards that were knocking down shots consistently to relieve that pressure. So that's why I'm saying it's going to be a guards game just as much as it's going to be a post game, because yeah, post players do draw attention, but it's up to guards to make shots to get some of that attention away from them.
Jamie, you've chased a lot of different guards around a lot of the season. They've got a really good one in Chloe Lamb. Do you know if that will be your assignment, if that will be J. Lou's, or and what do you just kind of look forward to when playing a player like that?
We actually don't know the matchups right now. She may be a little too tall for me to guard, so I might guard the second one. That's just as good as her. But I don't fear anyone. If you put me on the best, I'll guard them. There's no pressure with that, because they can't kill you. All they're gonna do is just get buckets, So all I gotta do is play my role. Do what I do best, and if she gets off, then just try my best to calm her down. Or don't let her get off at all. So I feel like that's how I look at it when I guard anyone.
Michael McClear, Argus Leader. Queen, similar question about South Dakota center Hannah Shervin. What are some of your early impressions of her, just, dealing with her in the post?
She's definitely an efficient post player, I'll say. She does her work early, and she's always moving and active. I will say she is a little bit of a flopper, and she does it well. Like, she sells a lot of those fouls. It might not be that much contact, but she really looks like she makes it look like they're beating her up. So she gets people in foul trouble, and she draws a lot of fouls, which is good for her team, but definitely won't engage in that tomorrow. Try not to get in foul trouble with her.
Jamie, just when you look at this team, South Dakota defensively too, what stood out about what they were able to do against Ole Miss, and how do you counter that?
They played a gap defense, which is where they packed the lane a little more. I feel like Ole Miss struggled with shooting the ball, and I feel like that's our advantage. We're home. We have the home advantage. Hopefully our crowd can get behind us, and our guards just shoot the ball as well as they did yesterday, Sarah and Jordan. So I think that we will have to bring them out a little more, which will also allow us to drive the ball even more. So if we get the threes going in our drives, then it's really easier to dump it off to the post or hit the post on the pick and roll, or hit them while they're running in transition. So I just think that if we bring them out a little more, then we'll be fine.
All right. Any other questions? All right.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Queen and Jamie. We appreciate you, Sam. All right, we welcome Coach Nikki Collin. Coach will take in-person questions, and we'll go ahead and begin. If you have a question, please state your name and affiliation, please.
Chad Conine, Waco Tribune Herald. Nikki, you talked yesterday about how good South Dakota is. That maybe wasn't really even an upset yesterday. In the last 14 or 16 hours or however long it's been, what have you kind of learned more about them?
I mean, it's just continuing to watch film. I mean, they have 3 seniors who are their all double-figure scorers and super seniors at that, and they know what they're looking for. They're very good coming off of ball screens. Defensively, they gave up 51 points per game. So a part of me, as we were talking about how to defend certain actions, I said, it's great. We have to have a defensive game plan. But we have to have an offensive game plan because this is a team that does such a good job of limiting their opponents and controlling pace. They don't play particularly fast, and so because of that, it shrinks the number of possessions in a game. And so, we have to do a good job of creating pace ourselves, of getting early actions before their defense is set. They're a team that, while you don't think they're like a super pressure, super turnover type team, they're so good in the gaps. They're so good digging in the post. If our posts mess around with it in the post and start dribbling, they're going to dig it out and go the other way. So certainly not a team that thrives necessarily in a points off turnovers type game like a Texas, but they do create them by how good they are, how good their synergy is on defense. So really good on both sides of the ball.
Jay Olson, Midco Sports. Coach, did you go back and pay particular attention to your matchups with Oklahoma and theirs? And if you watched their game against Oklahoma, what did you learn about them?
Honestly, I have not gone back. I watched OU before we played OU the first time. I went back and watched South Dakota against them. But, there are teams in our league that, quite frankly, play so differently than us. That it's not going to be my first look. Like if I'm going to go back and look, one of the first games I watched was Texas A&M because I know their personnel, because I know how they play, and even though we don't necessarily run all the same stuff, like because of how OU plays, because of their pace, because of them playing a lot of that matchup zone, it's just so different. They're going to run different stuffs, different things are going to work. I just feel like Oklahoma, like if I'm going to watch a conference opponent, I'm going to watch Kansas, because of how they defend and the offensive stuff they run. They're probably the most similar to us in terms of offensive and defensive philosophies, not necessarily personnel. But I have watched that game, but it's been a while. It's been since our first matchup with OU in early January.
Nikki, you said yesterday that Nalissa was a bit under the weather. Is that something where she's going to maybe feel a lot better tomorrow? And also, the kind of third quarter that she had, is that just a, kind of a built-in part of who you guys have to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think as she, anytime you have a cold or the flu or something like that, I think, you feel better day by day, fluids, rest, those type of things. And so, I think she feels better than she did yesterday. I think she felt better yesterday than she did the day before. And, and do we need that? I mean, look, Nalissa's our best player. And in big games and in big moments, we absolutely need the best version of Liz. And, I think, she's someone that doesn't back down from a challenge. And I think was a little like, wow, if I may be a little sick, but, if I'm going to play, I need to play, as opposed to going through the motions. And I thought early she kind of had to get over the hump of, being out there and being a little winded, and certainly played her fewer minutes than I normally would, which was obviously good, coming into a 2-game weekend. But, I mean, she's someone that showed how she can get in transition, who dominated the offensive glass. And I think that's something, they're a unique team in some ways because they aren't bigger than us in the post, but they're obviously bigger than us everywhere else. And so it's kind of one of those, they're all the same. They're all 5'10", and then their center's 6'2". So, but the thing that they do that's pretty incredible is they are a box out team. There are teams that are go get teams, and there are teams that are box out teams, and they hit you at your legs early, and they make you not want to go to the glass. And if you watched Ole Miss yesterday, they did not get on the offensive glass near as much as they normally do. And a lot of that was they got hit early, and if you want to win a game against South Dakota, you can't let their physicality wear you down. They know they're a little undersized in the post, and they just do such a good job of rotating and boxing, even if they're in rotations, because they're all capable of switching and guarding in the post. And so, I mean, that's what they do, to kind of take your will away at times.
Michael McClear, Argus leader. South Dakota's not a team that turns over the ball a lot, and I'm sure part of speeding them up would be forcing some turnovers. So how do you handle trying to force some turnovers on a team that's careful with the ball like that?
They're a little like us, honestly. I mean, they have multiple ball handlers, and I think that's what makes them hard to guard. There's as much as they're capable of running a lot of motion. When you break it down in terms of volume of what they're running a lot of two-player action. They're running a lot of middle ball screen action. They're putting their ball in the hands of a really good playmaker and making simple reads off the ball screen. And so, they'll mix in some motion, and they certainly, it can be a little scary to watch it, because if you're not a motion team and you don't defend motion regularly, it's a little daunting task to overthink it and overreact to it. But I think what they do in terms of taking care of the basketball has a lot to do with the fact that their primary ball handlers are seniors, fifth-year seniors, and they're big, so they see over the defense a lot, and they just make careful passes. I mean, so they're kind of a well-oiled machine. They know where they want to go. They don't over-penetrate very often, and they know where they want to pass it when they do penetrate deep. So not a team that goes to the foul line very much, and a lot of that is because they've got a lot of big guards who like to shoot pull-up jump shots. So not going to draw a lot of fouls, also not going to put themselves in position, to be in there deep and turning the basketball over in a crowd. So they know they want the wraparound pass if they get deep. They know where their people are supposed to be, and they're really good at being there.
I asked Jamie a minute ago about chasing guards around and then not trying to expose game plan or anything, but with Chloe Lamb, the type of player she is that comparable to Atwell from yesterday, to Jones from conference? Is there anybody you can pick out?
She's probably some combination of Emily Ryan. She's not as big as Ashley Jones. She's not as big as really even Atwell, to be honest. But she has some of their Atwell is like hand down, man down. I think Chloe Lamb is a little bit more. She's always searching shots. She's really good with her step back. She likes to get to her pull up. She's usually got size in those situations. Yesterday probably underestimated how long Shakira Austin was. And we talk a lot about how sometimes, a bad shot is the same thing as a turnover. It doesn't count as a turnover in the box score, but when you try to pull up over 6'5" and long and you get it blocked back at 15 feet, that's similar to a turnover. But she's so good at creating space, when she's got smaller defenders on her. In the step back game, she's so good getting to her left hand and finishing with a variety of angles and levels on the glass, and and she doesn't take a lot of bad shots. And so certainly at WNBA, she's going to be in the WNBA draft. There's no question in my mind. She's I don't know where people have her projected right now, but she's a big guard with skill, and I think can play with the ball in her hands, can play without the ball in her hands. I think she's got a chance to be pretty special.
Sorry. When you look at, I lost my train of thought. Look back at what they were able to do yesterday, and Queen mentioned, how they defended Shakira, and obviously they paid a lot of attention to her, rightfully so, and it worked for them. But Queen said she expected this to be more of a guard-driven game. Is that kind of what you feel too?
No. I mean, I think they play. They're really balanced with those three seniors. And I think it's a game. I think she feels that way. I'll tell you why I think she feels that way. But it's not because it's something that I've said. I think she feels like because of how good they are at digging in and how much of a gap team they are, that we're going to have to make some perimeter shots. So there's some truth in that. But I think you can attack their gaps and make the next play. I think you can post up on them. I think you can't mess around with the ball. I think that's what I've tried to tell her. Like if you get a low post catch and you haven't done your work early and you think you're going to have 3 or 4 seconds to dribble in place and go nowhere, then they're going to dig that ball out, And so I think in her mind, some of the things I've said, may have triggered this idea that it's going to be a guard-driven game. I think when you look at the balance of both teams, inside and out, I don't really think it's going to be one or the other, to be honest with you.
All right, we've got one more question.
And you mentioned Chloe, but Hannah obviously had a great day yesterday and won her matchup with Shakira Austin, although she admitted freely she had a ton of help defensively on her, but was able to create a lot of things offensively. What do you see when you look at Hannah Sherman?
Patient, efficient, works hard to gain position. The uniqueness of how Ole Miss played them, though, won her matchup if you put their faces side by side and said, here were their points and rebounds. But as far as, like, actually them matching up, Ole Miss switched a lot of ball screens. And so, she was doing some work against Maddie Scott. She was doing some work against any of the guard switches that she got. So I know she was 7 for 7. And I think 2 of those baskets were really good one-on-one moves that she made on Shakira. And so some of that is the nature of how Ole Miss plays. They've switched ball screens a lot all season long. A lot of their guards are longer, and Shakira can guard guards, and so that's kind of their defensive philosophy. But I think she's just, she's efficient and she's patient. She sets good screens. If you try to go over a screen on her, she's gonna act like you're bigger than you are and gonna go down and draw fouls. In those ball screens, their guards do such a good job of getting their shoulders on her hip and leaving no room for guards to get over. So the minute you start like trying to work your way through that gap, she'll take a seat on the ground. But she's so poised. Like yesterday she started the game with a 3, which was obviously a big shot for them to kind of create open space in the lane. But part of how Ole Miss plays, they play super aggressive. They play one gap denial. The lane was clean. If you watch the film, when South Dakota ran offense against them yesterday, the lane was clean the entire game. There weren't ever 2 feet in it. And so we just can't give them a wide open lane all night long, whether it's to cut into, roll into, drive into. Like we just have to I've always said we want the game to be pretty on offense and really mucky on defense or messy. And we've just got to mess it up at the defensive end because they can be real pretty on offense.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
A be like close to the mic. Sorry.
Got it.
All right, welcome to our news conference here in the Farrell Center. We have South Dakota student athletes Liv Korngable, Maddie Krull, and Allison Poplowski. Student athletes will take in-person questions, and if we have anybody that joins us from Zoom, we'll take those later. Reporters, when asking a question, please identify yourself by your name and media affiliation. So we'll go ahead and take questions now. Just raise your hand and we'll bring you the mic.
I know yesterday was exciting, but how quickly or how long did you take to enjoy it, and how quickly was it back to business? We'll start with Liv.
We definitely, sat in the precious present and enjoyed it. A great feat for this program, but yes, quickly after, it was business time and time to get, recovered and get some good rest and to be prepared for today to scout a little bit more.
Nikki Lattarulo from KCN here in Waco. For any of you guys, what do you see from Baylor and what makes them so good this season?
Watching them against Hawaii, I just thought they competed very hard and very aggressively. So that was my first impression, and obviously great size and speed. So our coaches will have a game plan for us.
Michael McClure, Argus Leader. Allison, obviously, you played some really good minutes yesterday. I guess what were some of the things that you were seeing out on the court, and how do you feel like you could bring that into the next performance?
I guess as far as on the court, it was we prepared really well going into it, so I think we were just prepared when we were out there playing. So I think that preparation going into it was how we were all able to succeed out there, and I think that's kind of the same thing going into the Baylor game. Although we have quite a bit shorter of a time to prepare, I think we're just going to follow what our coaches lay out for us, and then same thing across the board. It's all about playing tough and playing really hard. I think that is with these games and being in the NCAA tournament. I think that's one of the most important and crucial things to success in any aspect.
Hey y'all, Carter with Coyote Sports Properties. All of you obviously have NCAA tournament experience. How important was it to be able to draw from that in the win yesterday, and how important do you think it's going to be in getting ready and staying composed and prepared against Baylor tomorrow?
Go ahead, Matthew. You want to go?
Yeah. I think that I think it was Chloe that was saying this yesterday in a press conference question, but last year obviously being the first year that I was able to gain that experience, it's more of just exciting to get there. It's exciting to get there and to get the feel for it. But this year, we came and had a mission, and it meant a little bit more, and there was a lot more experience going into it. So I think that has been super important, and it will be super important going into this game. But as we've talked about, a lot of this is new to us. So just continuing to follow what the coaches are saying and to continue to prepare for the next game, as Pep was saying.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the Allison Arns era and the Kira Duffy era. Them, getting us here and getting us more exposed has really helped us now as veterans to be more prepared and experienced.
Chad Conrad, Waco Tribune Herald. Allison, you guys had a lot of success against, an All-American and Shakira Austin in the paint yesterday. Are there things from that success you take tomorrow? Because obviously Baylor's front court players are a lot different.
Yeah, I think there's things we take, and I guess even you take from the sense of just playing against someone with that much size. I think there is carryover just from playing against someone bigger, but obviously Baylor is a different team, and their posts are different than she is. And I think one thing that's important too is, as a whole, Baylor is different and has different guards and players, and I think that affects so much what you do across the board. So I think there's a little bit of carryover, but we'll have to adjust to the way Baylor plays and make a plan specific to them. So.
Maddie, have you talked a lot about just what a different challenge this will be now. Obviously, yesterday was what it was in Ole Miss, but now it's not only second-seeded Baylor, but on their home floor, and the difference that the environment is just automatically going to be.
We absolutely have talked about it. You know, we saw our 10 seed and we knew that the road would not be easy. We know that there would be challenges the whole way, but you know, we've played in challenging environments before. And I think about comparing it to kind of a Frost Arena where we play there against our rivals. It can get loud, and I think it will be loud, but I think that those are also super fun environments for us to play in, and I think that that's also something that we can use to kind of feel and kind of get going at certain points in the game. So.
Maddie, after that, even before that big third quarter, it seemed like you were looking for a shot a lot more. Was that a goal of yours coming into the tournament?
We talked a lot, especially Coach P, to our entire team, you know, about wanting the ball in your hands, to want the ball in your hands and to want to score the basketball. And she's always said that, but I think that something different really clicked. And I think that everyone followed that very well yesterday. And I think that it helps to see the first one go in, and I've always thought that. So when it did fall, it kind of made the rest of the game flow a little bit easier on the offensive end.
And with the goal of winning an NCAA tournament game was discussed all season, but was there ever a moment of the season that you thought about what these 24 hours, 48 hours in between would be like, or could you never even imagine?
I didn't. I just kind of, you know, we go one game at a time and one goal at a time, and you know, we didn't know what this felt like yesterday, so it was hard to kind of put into perspective early on in the season.
When you know you start playing D1 college basketball and you think of all the places you could go for a region, is Baylor kind of, you know, one of those places where you open your eyes and go, wow, we're going to, you know, one of the big spots in a way?
Yeah, I think growing up, Baylor has always been a very successful program, and the games that I've watched on TV, and so it is cool kind of being a vet now and kind of looking back on those days of growing up and playing basketball and kind of being here now. It's very, very full circle moment.
Pep, I know yesterday Dawn and Chloe and Hannah gave a lot of credit to the role players, Maddie, yourself, and Kaya, and role players is a bit broad of a term there, but all three of you made significant plays in that game at crucial times, and it was a big reason why you were able to keep Ole Miss at an arm's length. How important is that going to be again tomorrow to have similar efforts out of people outside of Liv, Hannah, and Chloe?
Yeah, I think it's going to be crucial. I mean, basketball, as you know, is a team sport, so I think it's going to take everyone and everyone's best. And I think that's kind of how these tournament games go, is you got to give your best no matter what you are, and that's even people that aren't necessarily playing as much. Like, our energy on the bench affects how we play on the court, and it translates if I'm sitting on the bench and our bench is flat and then I'm going in the game, I'm probably going to be flat. But if everyone else, I mean, it starts kind of bottom up in that way. If the bench people have energy, then people going in off the bench are going to have energy. The starters are going to feel that on the court. They're going to have energy, and everyone just kind of mirrors each other in that way. So I think whatever we do, we have to give our 100% no matter what our role is on our team.
Grant Sweeter, Kelland Sports. For any of you that would like to talk about it, you played a really talented player yesterday in Austin, and now you get to play one of the best, you know, with Nalissa Smith. You know, what kind of attention or do you guys do as a team to prepare for someone as talented as she?
I think our coaches help with our scout, and then just playing defense together. You know, it's not one person's job just to guard a great player like Nalissa Smith. It's all of our responsibilities.
Okay, any other questions? All right, if not, thank you, student athletes. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And good luck on Sunday.
2 for 2, Jay.
All right, we welcome now Coach Don Plitzowite from South Dakota, and we'll take questions. Just raise your hand, state your name and media affiliation, please.
Jay Elson with Midco Sports. Dawn, we asked the girls this too, but it was, it's a very different challenge now to move on from Ole Miss. They were one thing, but to see Baylor on their floor in this environment, just the conversation that you've had about what that's going to be and how different it will certainly be.
Well, Baylor certainly is a team that plays at such a high level on both ends of the court. You know, they push it and they score in transition. They score it inside. They offensive rebound. They shoot it well from the arc. They hold their opponents down. They're the complete package. You know, it's probably shocking in some ways that they aren't a number one seed. They do it all, and then they have great fan support on top of all of it. So, yes, a challenge in every way, shape, and form. You know, the good news is we've played on this floor once already, so maybe that is a little bit more familiar, but it's going to be a much different environment. It's going to be a much more challenging environment in terms of, you know, the crowd and those type of things.
How much film do you expose your players to? You know, either yesterday night or today, and like, is that something as a coaching staff? Do you watch film on Hawaii and Baylor even before the games happened yesterday?
We didn't watch film with our team prior to the game. You know, we just focus on who we are and what we have to do. You know, but last night our young ladies stayed and watched at least 3/4 of the game, and then had to go get some rest, recovery, and some food and get ready to go again. But you know, so they've saw a little bit last night, and then also had some time with their families, and that's important too. You know, we talk about being in the precious present, being in the moment, and so that was important for us. And then today, yes, we watched quite a bit of film on both ends of the court for them, and try to find different ways to do what we can do. You know, we can't simulate, we can't do what some other teams that they play against in their conference can do, because that's not how we're wired. It's not our makeup. And so we got to kind of try to figure out what can we do, understanding that we're giving something up in all ways that we try to attack them.
Coach, you know, you only get a 2-hour window to practice on the floor, you know, to prepare for a whole new opponent. You know, how kind of challenging is that? And when you're out there practicing, is it just hitting, you know, getting ready for Baylor?
Well, actually, we spent time, you know, before practice going through film and honestly going through all those type of things. And then, you know, our bodies, we took a lot of energy out of our young ladies to do, you know, to get to this point in time. So there's not a lot that we can do that's actually really aggressive and live, because we want to have enough energy and enough juice and try to have some zip and some pop and be ready to play again. And so a lot of it at this point in time is things that they're watching, things that they're seeing, and things that they're kind of going through, but maybe not necessarily always at full speed.
Chad Conan, Waco Tribune Herald. Coach, yesterday, Atwell from Hawaii said they watched film on Alyssa Smith and just said, we can't stop her. We got to do other things. Is that the approach you take, or can you find a way to stop her?
Has anybody really found a way to stop her? Because if they have, that would be a great game plan to come up with. But she's really, really special. She's very elite. You know, she's so sound. She's basically I don't know how tall exactly she is, 6'4", 6'5". She looks really tall to me, but I guess I'm not that tall. But she's like a point guard out there. You know, handles the ball in transition, gets to the rim, just can make a multitude of different moves, just sees the floor. So, yeah, she's a handful. She's a really, really special player. Fun to watch when you don't have to coach against her.
Hey,
Not
Dawn.
so much fun in our shoes.
Hi, Don. Carter Woodhill with the Coyote Sports Properties. I guess speaking of having a little fun, we've talked about this a little bit over the course of a year, but in practice this week, you've been focused when you've needed to be focused, but there's been plenty of positivity. It seems like the team hasn't been tight. They've been loose. They've been ready to go. We've talked about that this year, but how important is it to be able to maintain that perspective and have sort of that right sort of mental state, I guess?
Well, this is something that's really special for our young ladies. This is not, it's something that you want to be able to say that you played in this this tournament, but at the same time, you don't want to take it for granted either because it's really hard to do. And so you want to try to find ways to balance them enjoying the moment, but also getting ready to play. And I thought our young ladies did a really good job of that, in terms of being ready for our first round opponent in Ole Miss. And, now the challenge is even greater. And so can we find that balance and can we play well enough to compete? Those are all things that we're, trying to figure out at this point in time.
There was talk, obviously, all season about how much of a goal winning the NCAA tournament game was, and you probably imagined what that would be like and what the celebration would be like. But did you have any idea what the next day would be like?
I never really thought of what the celebration was going to be like. That was kind of spontaneous in the moment. Our fans were right there, and we got to sing the fight song with our pep band and cheerleaders that were there and our fans. So that was really kind of a neat time, and not something that we expected, but it was really fun to do. And no, honestly, we did not really look ahead at what the manual said happened after day one, but that's kind of how we approached our conference tournament too. That was a one-day itinerary at that point in time, and then kind of figure it out. The good news is that we've done this for a little while in terms of been in coaching for a while, so you figure it out. We have a full day. We're on spring break still at this point in time, and so we can kind of find ways to maximize our players' time at this point and still get them rest and recovery, but also try to educate them to the best of our ability on Baylor. And I think our players certainly have a great level of respect for our opponent. Now it's just a matter of what can we do as a team, what can they do as individuals to try to put ourselves in a position, to be out there and be in the battle.
Coach, with Baylor transitioning their program from last April and May to this year, and I believe you and Nikki Collin had crossed paths before, but is all of women's college basketball kind of watching to see what Baylor would do this year, and what's your sort of take on what they've been able to do?
Well, I think Nikki is really stepped into a potentially really challenging situation. You're replacing a legend. That's really, really hard, and I think she's done really a tremendous job because, the toughness and the grittiness defensively of Baylor women's basketball has continued, and then on top of it, they also shoot the ball at a very high percentage and shoot it more, and then they stretch the floor, and so it makes it even tougher, and it's really fun to watch it again until you have to play against them and see that. So I think she's done just absolutely a tremendous job.
At Baylor's press conference before, Nikki mentioned that she expects that Chloe could enter her name into the WNBA draft, and that's something that Chloe has actually said that she wasn't considering. I mean, do games like this on this stage and how well she played yesterday kind of prove to a player that maybe they are good enough to play at that level?
Well, I think what's really special about the young ladies in our program is that they have had such a team-first mentality and have continued through that, and because of that, I think they have played at such a high level, because when you're not concerned about you can actually play really well too, and they have done that, and Chloe certainly is somebody who has done that, and so it'll be fun to kind of watch and see what she decides to do, but she's certainly going to have some options when she's done, and coaching is definitely in her future at some point in time. She coaches the team during timeout. She coaches them on the court. She makes, she's interacting with us during the course of the game and practices. And even today in practice, when we got done with the drill, and I looked at her, and she had this funny expression, and I asked her, "What are you doing right now?" And she goes, "I was just trying to process in my mind who I think might be open on that while I'm coming off of this action." I'm thinking, yeah, you're just light years ahead. You're just kind of seeing things ahead of them happening.
Coach, you faced some size yesterday, but you get to face even more with Baylor. Obviously, they're quite long down low. So how is that something you can kind of overcome with their size challenges?
I don't know. That's really, instead of having one 6'4" kid out there, you've got two 6'4" kids out there. And, unless we can clone some of our players tonight, I don't know, it's going to be kind of a challenge. So it's difficult for us. Certainly, we give up an awful lot in terms of size, speed, athleticism, and so we've got to try to find ways to hopefully make them uncomfortable. But I don't know that until you get out on the court and you see it, you don't know. And the good news about our kids is at least they've been in situations where they've had to make adjustments throughout the course of the game. And so I'm sure that we're going to have to make quite a few adjustments, because what we think might work isn't something, again, that we can watch a team and say, wow, we play like this team and this worked really well for that team, because not many things work really well against Baylor anyway. And then we can't replicate what a lot of other teams do. And so we've got to just kind of get out there and see, and then make adjustments a little bit on the fly.
And I know the players talked about the importance of playing as a team and togetherness and cohesion when you're trying to counter something like that. What makes this team so good as a unit? What makes them so cohesive all season here?
Well, again, I think they're really focused on the goal for the team rather than any individual accolades or what they're looking for out of it. I think the kids on our bench have been tremendous. The kids that are getting us ready for games have been tremendous. And we talk a lot about the players that come off the bench and the players that are in the games doing it, but there's a lot more to it than just those young ladies, those 5 players that are on the floor. And I think that starts from, Reagan Sankey is a great leader for us as a senior who doesn't play a whole lot for us, and she's done just a tremendous job for us. But to have someone that's that locked in their 4th year and trying to make sure that everything is taken care of during the game, on the bench, in practice, making sure everyone remembers all their stuff to take on the bus, make sure that everything's cleaned up after you leave the locker room. Like, those are the little things that really, I think go into our team having that kind of chemistry and cohesiveness, because everyone's looking out for the whole and each other at the same time.
You mentioned Reagan, but obviously, having Aspen on the team, going through scout this week and knowing that you were going to go against Shakira, I guess, like, how big was that just in practice and able to sort of like mock that type of player?
Well, Aspen is really special for us because, again, there's one of the young ladies who gets us ready, who her name's not usually in the headlines. Maybe it's not ever been in the headlines, but someone who gets us ready for practice or for games in practice, and does just a tremendous job in our program of doing all the little things that help us be successful, to help us get to this point in time. But she's not someone that is out on the court in the same way that other players are. But her value to us is tremendous. We're not where we are without our players being able to see that size in practice. Our practice guys aren't even that big. So, it's really special that we have someone who has got size, athleticism, and is someone who is willing to do whatever it takes to help her teammates be ready to play.
All right. That's it for Coach. All right. Thank you very much, Coach. Appreciate it.
I was thinking of Queen's Gambit. Okay, so when Chloe was going through that and she was like seeing what was happening, it was a Queen's Gambit. That was the moment.
All right, thanks, Coach.